This is episode 224 of the Andrew Hines Real Estate Investing Podcast. This episode is brought to you by Control and Compound Financial. They teach real estate investors how to multiply their wealth using infinite banking strategies. For a complimentary wealth coaching session or to learn more, visit www.controlandcompound.com/Andrew Hines. Welcome back to the show. Today I've got Kellan Paniccia on, and he's been on the show a couple of times before. He was in the first, say, 10, 15 episodes. He was back in the early 90s, and once again back. Kellan is a guy that's known to do no JVs, and he's built his portfolio in just east of downtown London in an area called Soho, as well as Old East. And right now he's just refining his portfolio. So I caught up with Kellan early, and he had a lot of smaller properties, duplexes, triplexes, all in a similar area. And he's sort of just been transitioning away from the smaller stuff, getting into larger and larger units. In today's episode, we talked about what Kellan's doing to keep his deals cash flowing and the pretty incredible perfect BRRRR that he just did. So it's still working even in this market. He's still able to do that on a larger multiplex. And he also discovered that he has developable land. So he's got a really wide lot, a big backyard in one of his multiplexes, and he's currently going through with the city right now, or he's in the process of starting to get another multi-unit building approved, which would really just turn this into an incredible asset to own. So Kellan's a very interesting guy, full of wisdom, and he also really does help quite a few people with his content and his mentorship. So I thought it'd be great to bring him back on the show. Just before we jump into the episode, I want to remind you that the first several episodes of this show are a resource and one I highly recommend that you utilize. So if you're new to real estate investing or some of the terminology is not sitting quite right just yet, go right back to the beginning, because I designed those early episodes to be consumable for somebody who has absolutely no knowledge of real estate investing. So if you want to just sort of get your feet wet and learn the basics, that's a great place to start. And then you can come back and join us at these current episodes. I also want to remind you about the GTA West REI meetup, which is happening monthly. Our next event is happening in May, although by the time this airs, it might have just happened. So keep on our private group on Facebook and stay tuned for the next event. We will always share those events there until further notice. So with that being said, let's go ahead and jump into the episode with Kellan Paniccia. Please enjoy. Hello and welcome to the Andrew Hines Real Estate Investing Podcast. I've got Kellan James Paniccia on the show. So he goes by Kellan James online, but when you were on here first, you were Kellan Paniccia.
Yeah,
so
you know me better than most.
So you get both. And I think it was like episode 92, and then before that it was episode like 7 or 8 or right in there.
Yeah, and one of the early ones there.
And yeah, in the early like 2019, which is, I mean, a long time ago now. We were talking about how you did the whole $10,000 a month passive cash flow in London, and I think you went through a little lot. I was talking to you, and you're changing some things. So
lots changed, absolutely. Yeah.
So you were buying bigger stuff, and obviously business portfolios and real estate portfolios changed. So tell me about it.
So I mean, I had my portfolio at one point getting up to 17 grand a month in cash flow after 5% maintenance and 5% vacancy.
Yeah, like a very conservative estimate.
Yeah, I think that was maybe during self-management phase. So I don't think I had budgeted for property management. But anyway, So last we talked, I had 53 units or 52 units. In 2021, I sold 5 buildings, which was 15 units. I sold off some of the properties I didn't really want to keep forever.
What was the criteria to sell?
Just like location not being quite what I wanted, legality not being there, right? If it was like a 6 unit in a zoning that only allows 4, like
so you didn't want the non-conforming.
No, I mean I'm okay with legal non-conforming, but not.
Illegal non-conforming. Get rid of it.
Yes, this was illegal non-conforming. So, and you know what, like during that growth phase, I don't think there's anything too crazy about picking some of those up, because there's some significant value add that can still be had in those buildings. But like, if the plan isn't to hold them for the long term, I'm just not interested in it at this point, So I sold off some of those, and it was also offloading some of the smaller buildings, right? Like I like the idea now of 6 and up. So I sold off, some 2-3 unit buildings, 1 sixplex that wasn't legal. Mm-hmm. And so it was 15 units, and then I bought 51.
So you're up to 100 or so?
I got up to 88 sold, and because I sold the 15.
You keep pruning it?
Something like that. I don't even know if that math adds up. It was something like that. And then I was at 88. I sold a few recently to get it down to 83. So Sold two buildings. And the reason is during that growth phase, I'm still doing it with no joint venture partners, right? And so, the 24 unit building alone was over $1 million down payment. And like, this is just me. I'm generally trying not to get too crazy into private loans and stuff. But I did
a little bit.
But I did because when I was acquiring that much, I still like the idea of growing without. So
I hear you. Especially for stuff you're going to hold long term.
Yeah, exactly.
If it's a flip or something, that's different. But you're going to hold it long term. You better make sure you're in with somebody you want to be in with.
Exactly. Yeah. So I went through a period of time where I did take on more private loans than I wanted to, and this was when I went, okay, like, when interest rates started going up, I went, well, this doesn't. I'm not particularly fond of how this looks in the long run. I'm in a situation sort of where, I never want to be in a place where the market needs to fix something in order for things to go well. So I went, you know what, this is a good time for me to sell. I sold a duplex and a triplex. And luckily, I've owned these buildings for so long. I had hundreds of thousands in equity. So I used those and just paid off a whole bunch of private loans. And it just got me to a place where I could feel like I was I felt safe, Everyone's got their different like sweet spot in terms of like what level of exposure they want to the market, what level of leverage they want. And for me, it was just more leverage than I wanted and more exposure. Not even really exposure, but just leverage. And so that's what I've been doing. That was what I was doing for the last while, is kind of sold off a couple just to deleverage a bit, and a bunch of refinances, things like that, pay off more private loans. And now I've gotten to a place where like it's been like the last 12 months has just been like stabilize that stuff, Yeah. And in the meantime as well, like because of that significant number of acquisitions, it's been like a lot of units that need turnovers. So I had an 8-unit building. We turned all 8 units over. It came with 2 vacant, and we got the other 6 out with cash for keys. And then I have another 8-unit building that we're just, as of now, actually probably going to get 8 out of 8 vacant as well, which is great. And again, all cash.
And you're talking like $1,000 a month increases on the rents, aren't you?
$600 to $1,000 type stuff.
Like, give me an example. Your unit. 1-beds are going to go for, like, you're getting them at what, and taking them to what?
We have like I have a lot of units that are like $600 or $700 tenant. My
goodness.
And then maybe even less. I swear I might have had, I don't know, but yeah, $600-700, something like that, maybe $800. And then there'll be, 1-bedrooms will be like minimum $1,200 plus hydro generally.
That's now?
Yes, in London.
And that would be like a super bottom of the market price, wouldn't it? I'm not hearing of 1-bedrooms at $1,200.
I've always run things quite conservatively, and $1,200 is just sort of like, if I can get that, I know. But like I've gotten $1,400 for 1-beds. I really don't push it beyond that. But bear in mind, these are, this isn't like a 1-bedroom condo or something. It's a bedroom like in a triplex or in a,
Yeah. Do they get parking with that?
Yeah. Almost everything I have has parking. That was part of my criteria as well for some of the sell-offs. I do have one building that it's an 8-unit, and it probably has 5 parking spaces. So not ideal, but I bought that 8-unit building for $700,000. So I was like, this is fine. Like I can rent a space from a neighbor, something like that, and make it work.
And do you have what's your criteria on is it a per unit price that you're looking to pay?
It's a lot of, it really comes down to the BRRRR calculation. I really don't focus too much on what the current rents are on the units. Like, I just look at if I can afford to pay each tenant about $10,000 to turn them over. Generally, most people in time will accept an offer like that. It's pretty hard to say no to $10,000.
Is that what you're getting to?
I've paid a lot of people $10,000. Yeah.
Good Lord.
Oh yeah. It sucks, but I've probably paid upwards of $250,000 in cash for keys at this point. Yeah. So
walk me through this negotiation process. How do these people figure on $10,000? How do they figure they're getting it?
So if tenants aren't taking on a paralegal, then it's just a bit of a, here's the situation. We'd really like to renovate this unit. You've been here a long time. We can't really make a lot of sense of what the rents are here. We're happy to pay you to move to another unit. Maybe we can offer you something else that's better renovated. Like oftentimes my portfolio will have something else in the portfolio, that they can move into. Mm-hmm. Their unit's generally not well renovated. They've been there 10 years because the previous owners never did anything. We're not going to go in there and gut their unit while they're living there. Like, here's an option. We can move you here. And so oftentimes if they're a good tenant, I'll move them to another one of my buildings. If they're not a good tenant, then it's like, this is the option. Like, try to find another, unit elsewhere.
Yeah.
We'll pay for your moving costs. Like, we'll have movers come and take care of things for you. We'll give you time, like, I don't care if it's 4 or 6 months from now, as long as I know it's happening, it's fine with me. It doesn't have to be immediate. So
Hi, friends. I just wanted to take a moment away from the episode to tell you about my brand new structured coaching program. This is the first time I've ever offered a structured coaching program where we'll have regular meetings in addition to an intro call to go through what your goals are and help you get on a plan to achieve those goals within real estate. So if you've followed me for some time and you feel that I would be a fit for you to help you achieve your goals in real estate based on my skill set, based on the topics we cover on this show, I encourage you to head over to my website, andrew-hines.com/coaching, and fill out the questionnaire so that we can schedule a call and figure out if it's a fit for us to work together. Let's face it, most people could benefit from a second set of eyes and ears going over their strategies, different deals that they're looking at, and helping to springboard ideas back and forth. This is a program that's exactly for that. So if you're looking to build confidence in what you're doing in real estate investing and get very clear on what it is you're trying to accomplish, this might just be the program for you. Take a moment, fill out that questionnaire, and let's schedule a chat.
It gives them a pretty reasonable play. Like oftentimes people are waiting for a catalyst in their lives, right? Mm-hmm. People, especially someone that's been renting the same place for 10, 15 years, like they'll probably be there the rest of their lives unless there's some sort of catalyst for change in their life. And this is often that this is one of the catalysts.
So I mean, you come in and you offer them moving fees, and they say, "Well, I don't really want to leave. Like, why would I want to? Why would I want to?"
Well, you start with a lower offer, and then you kind of increase from there, right? So, like, sometimes we'll start with like $2,500 or $5,000, and then kind of go up from there. Mm-hmm. And it's not like I'll pay everyone 10. Like, it has to be a significant upside potential. I have tenants that will only offer like a couple grand because like their units can only rent for a couple $100 more a month, and at some point natural turnover will take place, but we know the value of getting these rents up when it comes to cap rates and just
well, it makes total sense, right? And I don't have my phone on me, but I think it was at a 5 cap if you had $100, and what was it if you had $100?
I don't know the rules of thumb.
There is like a good. It's a good chunk. Like you can $100 a month works out to be like. It's a good chunk. I'll have to check that number in a moment, but
people are just not comfortable with the idea of this injustice.
It's worth more than the 10,000.
Yeah. But people don't like paying this. Like it's a large fee for people to justify.
I bet there's a business out there being the guy. Like I get people out of units. Like,
well, I mean, it's kind of like
services
Adam
for hire.
Kitchener was doing some of that, right? Like,
tenant negotiation.
Yeah.
Service for hire.
Oh yeah.
I should start this. I've actually been pretty successful at it, not needing to do that much.
You could talk to Adam Kitchener. He's been on here before, right? Like
But
I
have talked to him though.
He's done. He used to do a lot of that. He doesn't do it anymore, but that was what he did for a lot of people. Like talk to these tenants and have those uncomfortable conversations. But
I like to, I mean, it's better, like the rent eviction thing is probably still the way I would do it. And I don't mean it in the way that Ontario tries to call it. Like a fully transparent, a legitimate N13 where you go in, you give them the notice, you say this stuff has to happen. And then it's the Kyle Ford approach. Once you get them out and they have the moving truck already there, like
what you just say, move back, right?
You just say, hey, you know what? Why don't you just get yourself situated? What's it going to take for us to just get you situated somewhere new?
Yeah. Oftentimes we will actually present the N13 as option 1, right? Yeah. Like this is probably what we'll do if, there isn't an acceptance of this N11, but but like we'd rather this be just a mutual agreement. We'll give you lots of time.
I like the mutual agreement too. Yeah. So you get that in play. I've never done this. I heard Kyle say it, and ever since then I'm like, that's genius. And I know he still does that. But well, actually, I don't know if he's still doing it to this day. But
right. I know he did it on a 12 unit at one point.
Yeah. And other people have sung that, that methodology's praises too. I did. So recently I had to get a tenant out. I was selling a unit, and the tenant, they were paying an okay rent, but I went to them and I said, fortunately for me, they were in a non-rent controlled.
Oh yeah.
So I just went to them and said, hey, so basically as of this date, I can raise your rent to whatever I want. Yeah. And I'm like, don't get me wrong. I don't want to do that. I hate having this conversation, but I got some buyers and they will only buy this with this unit vacant.
Yeah.
So here's what I got to do. Can we work something out? Here's what I'm thinking. And then, he knew some people in the courthouse and he wanted to ask. He came back to me. He's like, well, I've heard people getting $50,000.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, I thought we were going to have a serious conversation.
Yeah.
I'm like, obviously.
I've had those.
And he argued with the laws with me. And then I'm going through the laws. I sent it back. I'm like, take a look at this. Let me know if I've missed anything. Then that stopped that conversation. Yeah. So then once we agreed that yes, as of September, the rent would be whatever, I just said, let's just work this out. Tell you what, I'll cover the difference. I'll give you a free month. I'll cover the difference in rent if you agree to move out early before September.
Right.
Because, you know, we both know if I raise it to a number that doesn't make sense, you wouldn't stay anyway.
Yeah.
So let's make it a win-win. Let's just make it a win-win. And we worked it out. I think ended things on nice terms. They left the place nice and clean. And
That's good.
Yeah, you know, like just everybody being completely transparent, nobody trying to lie or, you know, misrepresent anything. That's the biggest thing where I think landlords get themselves into hot water and then get themselves put in a newspaper headline is when you try and mislead your tenants and try and pull the wool over their eyes or blow smoke, you know, and that's
we never do like that. I'm moving in type stuff or any of that. It's it generally, we always just want it to come down to a mutual agreement.
Yeah, mutual agreement. Like everybody just be transparent, express what your needs are. I've had other tenants, it was like, hey, I'm going to be selling this place. My realtor says that this place sells better vacant. Odds are if I sell this to somebody, they're going to want it vacant too. Yeah. So you know what? Why don't we just work something out? You know, I'll cover some moving expense.
I've had situations even where I say like, look, I'm going to have to sell this building because the rents don't make sense here. Like I can't make sense.
And then they'll just move out.
And then I'll just say like, if you're willing to pay this much in rent, then, you know, then oftentimes like, okay, we'd rather stay. And I have tenants to this day that their rent increased. They went from 800, which they knew made no sense for a 2-bedroom because the previous owners was their parents or their sister or whatever. And then I said, like, if you'll pay 1,200 for this, like, I can make sense of it. Yeah. And they, to this day, still pay that.
It's amazing what you can do when you reason with people. Because my buddy, he was in a place in Toronto paying a much under market rent because he'd been there for many years and his landlord kept talking to him. And I'm of course telling him, I'm like, well, you know, the law says you don't have to pay him anything more than their allowable increase, like the 2%.
Yeah.
He's like, I know, but he keeps calling me and he's like, look, man, like, you know, this isn't a reasonable rent. He's like, we just said, okay, fine. And they let him increase it more. It's so funny.
I've had a few like that. They're just like, come on, like this is unreasonably low. Can you pay something more reasonable? And sometimes they will. Yeah. I mean, at this point now, I'm not self-managing anymore. So those conversations are being had by my property managers. I have had paralegals handle the conversations as well. There's a lot of people who aren't able or willing to have these conversations with tenants themselves. So even if you're self-managing, you can have a paralegal handle that conversation for you. You know, it's going to be done 100% legally at that point because they have to.
But I mean,
properly.
I generally think if you have to go to the lawyers, it's like, that could have been avoided.
That's the problem. And if you have a paralegal, sometimes they'll get their own paralegal. And then generally what the other paralegal says is ask for 10 grand. That tends to be their go-to. Ask for 10 grand, you know?
See, and I would prefer to avoid. But I mean, it is a tough thing. Sure. Like if you're just coming up to them and saying, I want you to go, like I think 10 grand makes a lot of sense. Like, if I were in their shoes, I'd probably say that.
And like when I'm looking at acquisitions these days, I just budget for it. I just say, okay, like, you know, this is a triplex. I'm going to also add 30 grand in potential cash for keys here. You know, like, you know, there's a lot. If you get a good enough deal, you can make total sense of this, and it makes the project go a whole lot more predictably. You know.
When's the last acquisition? Like, when did you buy, or what did you buy?
Yeah, my most recent BRRRR that's been completed, because I bought all those, but some of them are still in the process. I had one 8-unit building. It came with 2 vacant units. And we turned all the others. We turned the other 6 over. We probably paid some of them 4 or 5 grand, and then the last 2 or 3 we had to pay like 10 grand. So that was a lot of cash for keys to get that one out.
Yeah.
Like say what would that be? Say like almost 50 grand kind of thing.
Well, I'm just getting this queued up, and then I'll take down some numbers. Give me 1 second here.
Yeah.
And
this was one of my best BRRRRs I've done in a while, and it's nice to have these year after year because, you know, since 2016 when I started investing, you know, we refer back to deals I'd done in the past. You can listen to previous episodes, and people go, oh, well, the prices were lower at that point or whatever, but like it's nice to have another deal that I've done recently that once again is a great deal, you know.
This is what I want to hear. Okay, so tell me again. So it was an 8-unit?
It's an 8-unit building in London. Yeah.
Okay. And you said 2 units were vacant?
2 were vacant.
Okay. So what did you pay for it?
I paid $600,000.
600. Is this like off market or
this
what?
Was on market. I know none of this makes any sense to people, but this was in 2021. It was an 8-unit building sitting on the MLS. Sat for a month. They listed it at $750, which even that is a ridiculously low price.
That's all right. Yeah.
They didn't have any photos on the listing. It doesn't look like an 8-plex from the front, right? But
so it's not purpose built.
It's not purpose built, but it has 8 1-bedroom apartments. You know, 4. I think it's 4 in the basement, 4 on the main floor. They're all like the same layout. So I don't know what the deal is. Like it almost seems it almost feels purpose built when you're in there, but I'm not sure what the history of it is.
So a good purpose built. Okay, so what do we have for reno and cash for keys to get that whole thing? Did you turn the whole thing over?
We turned all 8 over. Yeah.
So reno and cash for keys, what's the all in?
At most 400,000. I should look at my tax return now and see, because I would have added it all.
So
up
about $1 million bucks, including carrying costs.
I'm in for about $1 million. Yeah.
Yeah. All right, so you're all in for $1 million, and let's just I'm just clearing this stuff out. And what do you figure it's worth?
It reappraised at 1.75.
1,750. So for you, like that's a huge lift. You're talking $750,000.
It was a $750,000 equity gain. Yeah,
equity gain. Wow. All right, what do you got it rented for?
I think we got $1,150 for the basement 1-beds, so $1,150 times 4.
Yeah,
and then $1,250 for the main floor 1-beds, and they're all plus hydro.
So those are 4 as well.
Yeah.
All right, so 9,600 for the building.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, plus hydro, and we have one boiler that heats all the units, and it's a combination boiler tankless.
Okay.
So it's one unit that mounts.
Oh yeah,
on the wall.
Remember you sharing about this. Yeah, that's cool.
I have a bunch of those in my buildings at this point, but it heats. Yeah, it's residential hot water and heat. For
no air conditioning in these units.
No, they'd put window shakers.
Yeah.
in.
Okay. Yeah. What's the property tax on this building?
I don't have. I could pull it up, but it's low. Like it's low because this is in Soho in London, so it's like an old neighborhood.
Is it like $5,000 a year?
Probably or less. Like
$4,000?
Yeah, probably. It's very low. Yeah.
All right, that sounds great. And your taxes on that are about like $3,000 a year or something? $3,500?
That's what. Isn't that what you just asked? The taxes or
sorry, insurance?
Insurance.
Apologize.
Yeah.
Brain not working quite right.
Let me just grab my numbers.
Yeah.
I thought my brain wasn't working there. Hang on. Let me just pull up because I got it all here. Okay, so insurance on that is actually $2,578 a year, which is crazy low.
That seems really low.
It's legitimately what I paid in 2022. It's probably going to go up a bit. Now insurance is going up.
Just like the replacement cost is going to get higher and higher. Like, because even though you only paid, what did you pay? 600?
600.
Like that's less than replacement cost on that building. You can't rebuild that building for 600.
I negotiated the insurance. I compared a few rates and I negotiated it down. But this is also a what is it, like an umbrella insurance policy? So that's the rate for this building. But like the first building in this umbrella policy has a higher rate, and then the rest are lower from there.
Oh, okay. So you get I've done that too.
Yeah.
But I don't recall getting anything that cheap. But yes, that's great.
All of mine are quite low.
That's great. No, that makes sense if you're putting a bunch on it.
Yeah.
Okay, so
and then property taxes, actually, this one is higher than I thought. This one's $11,590 for property tax.
Good thing we double checked that.
Yeah, because the reason is anything over 7 units with MCAP
it starts getting real expensive.
They count it as a multi-unit building or whatever the terminology is. And almost every single city in Ontario is then going to do a significantly higher multiplier on the appraised value. So as soon as 6-unit buildings, great property taxes. As soon as you get to 7, it almost doubles. It's a nightmare. As soon as 7-unit buildings are like the opposite of a sweet spot. Yeah. And this is 8, so it starts to get a little better, but like 7 is a terrible number.
Okay.
And this is like
good to know. And I've seen you post on that before, so that's good to know.
Yeah. I mean, I literally have an 11-plex that has 7 units on one side and 4 on the other, because it's like 2 addresses, and one side's property taxes is double the other, or more than double the other side, maybe triple the other side.
Wow.
Yeah. So it's just because there's just 7 units on one and 4 on the other.
So you might be better off just amalgamating smaller units.
Merging or expanding, like getting to the point where now it has 8, 9 units. Like if you can add units, then it starts to make more sense. But
so you're saying it's not going to go up as much like per unit.
No, because
the big jump is at 7.
The big jump starts at 7. It's a multiplier on the value of the property. And I don't have the numbers on me, but like it almost ends up doubling it.
Wow.
Yeah, it's significant.
Very, very interesting. Maintenance, I mean, I have 5% in here, which is like $57.60 a year. Does that cover it generally for you?
Well, yeah, because these are all fully renovated.
Yeah, so you're not totally necessarily... Boiler, new roof. Like if you wanted to amortize the cost of a new boiler in 20 years, you might add it to there or do like a replacement allowance.
Yeah, you could. Yeah.
That's the only thing I might change. I'm not going to dive too deep into that right now. Okay, so utilities, what are you paying on an annual there, you figure?
just I only have to pay the gas and the water. My actuals in 2022 was for water and hydro total was 75.38. But then I don't know what it'll be.
Anything for gas?
Gas, I have 49.56.
49.56. Okay. So 12,494 for everything.
The hydro should be lower now, right? Because this was like
when
halfway
everything
through
was
the
together.
year, we were still renovating, and there was tenants.
Okay, so we'll say maybe it'll be like 6,000 next year as a conservative estimate.
Sure.
Or well, we could play with it.
Yeah,
we'll call it 6,000. Okay, and then management. What are you allowing for management?
So we do 6.6. It's 6.6%, but my managers don't charge leasing fees, so you could basically call it 5%, like typical people.
But I like to include the leasing. Yeah.
Okay.
Because I always hated how people wouldn't include that.
Yeah.
Well, you don't pay that every year. Well, if we do it roughly every 3 years, let's just divide that fee by 3 years and add it in.
Yeah. This is just flat 6.6. So
landscaping and snow.
I don't have those numbers handy.
Do you know what ballpark you typically pay? Like, is it $100 a month or something like that?
Probably like the season for grass. Maybe it'd be like $700 for the season or something like that. This property has a giant backyard. It might be higher. It might be like 900 because it is it's 100 feet by 200 feet. This lot.
Okay, so we'll allow a little bit more for that, and then snow. If you have a bigger parking lot, tends to be a bit more.
Yeah, not a huge parking lot, but I don't know what the snow is. I can't recall.
Call it like 1,000.
Sure, it's more than I'd like. Snow removal is like the worst having to pay that bill. I'm gonna be getting my handyman doing it next year.
All right, so miscellaneous. I'll just leave. I'll put a 500 in there because it's a little bit bigger building. What about garbage and all that?
We have a dumpster on this.
Yeah, so you have a monthly cost for that.
It's $25. Yeah,
a month.
A month.
With disposal.
Yeah, we pay a little bit. I think we pay a little bit more for them to come twice a week. So the nice thing about this is
they come twice a week and charge you $25 a month.
It ends up being another like couple dollars per unit per year. Like it ends up being almost an irrelevant amount more for them to come twice a week. And we like them coming twice a week to keep people from picking.
Is this
through the
municipal
garbage.
pickup?
It's municipal. Yeah.
So the municipal dump truck comes twice a week.
Yeah.
And that's why it only costs you $25?
It's exactly.
Because that couldn't even possibly cover their gas.
It makes no sense. But I like to think that that's coming out of the giant property tax bill.
All right. I think you're accurate that it is.
Yeah.
$300 a year for a dumpster?
It's super cheap. We actually use it for renovation materials. We're not supposed to, but we tend to put a lot of, we tend to fill those up pretty good.
I love it.
Saves us some dump fees. Yeah, this was the first time that I've had dumpsters. This building, my 11, my 24, maybe one other building. We have dumpsters now, and they're awesome.
It is wonderful having a dumpster.
Tenants move out, we just throw it on the dumpster.
Wonderful having a dumpster. Yeah. So 1750 is your new value. So at that value, you're like a 4.16 cap rate.
Yeah, honestly, I don't even use cap rates very much.
Well, no, I'm just thinking like the appraiser.
Yeah,
the appraiser. Like I know you're not. What you bought it at, I didn't even calculate.
Yeah.
I'm just saying like for the appraiser to give you that value based on this income.
This was probably 6 months ago, or maybe a little more than 6 months ago it appraised. So this was a little. This was before the values have gone down more recently, right? So it's probably worth a little less.
For them to go like that's aggressive. That's like 2021 cap rates right there.
Yeah, and I don't know what the expenses were on the appraisal report.
Well, the appraisal report might have had different expenses. Like he might not have thought some things were as much. And
sometimes they'll do like 3% for management. They'll go as low as 3%.
For sure. For sure.
So you try to push appraisal values, right?
100%. No, I would do the same. So what did you do for a mortgage? Did you get a full 75?
Yeah, I did on the acquisition, on the refi I did not. I got 55.
55% on the refi. That's what I wanted to know. So you're still pretty much in for nothing. You're in for a bit.
It was still about a perfect BRRRR, even at 55% loan to value on the refi.
So if I'm correct here, what was your interest rate on?
I got 4.9. It was the timing I got. I got it. I had it locked in for 90 days, and they gave me a decent rate. So
beautiful. Yeah. Okay, so I'm getting like a $530 a month cash flow. Does that make sense? Yeah,
that sounds about right actually. Yeah, right around there. Yeah.
So is this one in your mind like it's one of those ones that'll just grow over time? Like those rents are going to keep going up. Like it sounds to me like you rent out.
We rent low. I mean, bear in mind, this isn't the best neighborhood in London. It's fine.
Is this all Soho?
This one's in Soho. Some of them are in Woodfield. Some of them are in Woodfield's like east of downtown, but not as far as Old East.
East of downtown.
So it's a Woodfield is an awesome neighborhood to own in London. I never thought I'd actually be able to make sense of the numbers in that neighborhood. It's one of those.
Okay.
But I have been able to make sense of it for my 24 and my 11 unit. But this one's
what street would qualify?
Princess Ave.
Okay. Yes. Yeah, I know.
Yeah, this one's on South Street in London. This 8-plex.
Okay.
But it's a 100 feet by 200 feet lot, and we actually have a pre-application in right now to build a 12-plex on this same lot,
just in the backyard
behind the 8-plex.
Oh, dude!
Without having to buy any land.
Are you working with an urban planner?
Yeah.
So who'd you hire? Zelinka?
Zelinka.
Yeah. Okay. I've worked with them in the past.
Yeah.
Very cool. So curious, like what kind of budget do you have to allow for that type of a project with the planner?
It was I think I talked to him, and I know that the total cost I'd have to expect if I was to do a build minus the build, like just
minus the build
fees,
cost, just
all the fees,
like
and
their
city
fees
stuff. I think their fees would be like 16 grand kind of thing.
Okay, so there's
like,
16, but then you're gonna have engineering consultants.
It'd be about 50
for the engineering consultants, and
between
them?
like I don't even know. I've never built a building before. This is
I mean, I would assume I'm into like. Well, you're not doing any roads. You're not into any roads. So, you would have to bring service into the backyard. So you'd have to cut into your road.
Yeah, this is all going to be brand new to me if this gets approved.
And hoping that they have sewage capacity. So they've done a pre-consultation with the city already.
We're doing we've done one. I don't know. I haven't heard back yet.
So key thing, ask sewage capacity. Do you have it? Because if they don't have it, you could end up like just being basically you could maybe they'll let you start, but you couldn't get occupancy. Like you wouldn't be able to occupy it until they had the capacity.
Right. Yeah.
Or they might not let you get a building permit at all. Like they'll approve you and they'll just say as soon as we have capacity, then you can go.
Okay. Yeah. I know that one thing is that they're allowing as low as 0.5 parking spaces per unit.
Okay, that's new.
Which is pretty handy because I don't have enough for 20 parking spaces on this lot. I have enough for about 10. So not all the units would have parking, but I don't have to buy land, which is pretty nice. And you probably do quite well because you're on brand new units. Like they're gonna, and I'll be my own builder for it if this goes through. Like, I have enough contacts that I should be able to handle. Yeah, it'll be a learning curve.
So would you do framed, 3-story framed?
Probably a 3-story walk-up. Yeah. Framed. Yeah. This is again, I've never done this. I mean, I've done extensive renovations on all my buildings, but I've never built a building from scratch. So
that's
brand new.
So cool.
Yeah.
So you already get your survey done? Or you're just doing pre-consultation?
Just the pre-consultation. It's literally just survey, like a top-down picture of like where the building would be, where the parking would be.
So Zelinka just did that. They just did a site plan.
I paid like $2,500 so far in fees to just see what's happening.
That's such a this is the way in my mind development works. Like you have the land already covers itself, and now it's just a play. If you win the play, you could literally, if you wanted, just sell the whole thing to somebody and make a profit.
Yeah, it'd be 20 units total on this lot at that point. There was a 15-unit building I was looking at last year that had the potential to build 3 4-plexes on the same land. So same kind of stuff. Like that's when I would consider building is like if I'm buying a building, the building makes sense itself and there's room to build more on that land. Like great, right? It's free land at that point. But yeah, development's never been my intention. But I mean, if I have the opportunity to do it without having to buy land, I'll take it.
That's amazing, man.
Yeah, that was probably one of my best deals ever. Definitely one of my best deals ever. It was the most equity I've ever made on a building. $750,000. Like it took about a year. We had to between getting all the turnovers and stuff, but and just worked with a credit union. No partners. No. It allowed me to pay off private loans and just come out clean. So I just ran the numbers on this one just so we have context because like you said, our deal's still working today. So $37,500 is what your net investment is. So if we put that in $37,500 just as a total invested, and I know it's not exact, you're going to be within probably $10,000 or $20,000 of that. That's like 171% return on investment, like 16.9% cash on cash. Those are great numbers, right? I never look at return on investment because I'm always just trying to get all my money out. So it's
well, if you get all your money out, like it's hard to quantify your investment because your investment is also time.
For sure.
Like you can't. That's hard to quantify. Were you tracking every hour you thought about it, worked on it?
Exactly.
And that's why it's not exactly as simple as that.
And the more I've realized over the years is time is only one thing. It's mental bandwidth that really matters. the more
which we were
projects you have
talking
on the
about
go.
right when you got in here.
Yeah, you've got builds, you've got the podcast, you've got all sorts of...
Like if somebody wants to feel overwhelmed by me. So Florida builds, I got camp opening, just bought a new resort, got the development in Sarnia. I'm financial controller for all my businesses, although I delegate just about anything else. If it's a phone call, I just tell my assistant to make it. Like, unless it's somebody I need to speak with myself. And somehow, I still find myself very, very busy. I'm very fortunate that I have, like, I get to work from home. I'm flexible, and I'm here in the office right now. But it can be a little bit.
It's a lot.
It takes reflection from me, probably on a weekly basis at very least. Like, okay, how can I get some of this off my plate?
Yeah,
because I enjoy.
You have a son now too, right?
Yeah, and like I'm not like at the end of the day, I'm still home for 5 o'clock, and I'm still with my son in the middle of the day sometimes.
Yeah,
like I have that flex.
Yeah,
but I would also prefer to just be raking it in and not doing everything.
Well, I mean, it's my goal, right? Like I have a property manager, I have a GC, so really my day to day at this point is very little. I do coaching and mentorship to keep me busy, right? But like otherwise, my projects are. I live in London. My projects are in London, and I still don't even go to the site.
Yeah, you've done more and more. I've seen in the last 4 years, just more and more to delegate yourself out of the job. And I remember talking to you, what was it, last time? You're like, well, what else can I delegate? Because I think I told you,
really?
I'm like, you should just have somebody else manage that. You're like, well, what else am I going to do with my time?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I guess I'm having fun with the coaching, so it allows me to just like help other people with that sort of thing. But I mean, we traveled 2022. We were in Norway for 3 weeks, Australia for a month, New Zealand for 2 weeks. We did Costa Rica.
This is in 1 year.
Yeah. Oh, if you look at it's absurd. We did a month.
I was sort of watching because you don't post, but the people you went with do.
Yeah, Angie posts a lot. My fiance. We were in Costa Rica recently. That was where I proposed. So we've got the wedding coming up later this year. We're probably gonna have kids at some point. So like, I've always been trying to build a lifestyle business, and I want it to be something that I can kind of come in and out of as needed.
Yeah.
And like having a GC, having contractors, and just buying apartment buildings, it's the sweetest. It's the best sweet spot I could find in terms of me. First off, I think doing one of the best and highest uses of my time, which is growing my assets under management, sticking with long-term rentals, BRRRRing, keeping my tax burden down, and having very little work to do. It allows me to continue just. Maybe I'll buy an apartment building a year. I mean, that's
and are you
great,
doing it in corporations now, or is it still all personal?
I do have a corp now. I have a 3-tiered corporate structure now.
Yeah. So did you get rid of everything in your personal name?
This year, last year I got rid of. I moved a whole bunch. I used bare trust agreements and Section 85 rollovers, and got properties out of my personal name into my corp. Sold some in my personal name. I had a $380,000 tax bill to pay when I sold a bunch. That was a terrible bill to pay.
That's ugly. Yeah,
it was ugly, but. I'm down by the end of this year. I should have one property in my personal name, and that's the house I live in, which I want to keep there for principal. It's a triplex that I live in. So
yeah, that's all right.
Yeah. Get it all out of my name. Like the Section 85 rollovers are nice for, if you structure them properly, all you have to pay is land transfer tax. You don't have to pay capital gains.
That's assuming there was a bare trust agreement in place.
This is without a bare trust agreement. So Section 85 rollover.
Oh, that's when you sell yourself shares, and
you transfer the property, and
then
you
pay
pay
back
land transfer
shares
tax
for it, right?
I don't know if shares are. I don't know.
Because I talked to my accountant about doing this, and he's like, "Well, you have to do a fair market value on the property today."
Yes, you do some of that, but it's based on you can. I think there's a very strong argument for the fair market value being lower if you haven't refinanced, and I think that's how it works. I'm not even sure. I have my lawyer and my accountant handle it, but. I use Cherry Chan and it's I've basically just been paying land transfer taxes for most of these to move them over, and then bare trust agreement is just legal fees and accounting fees.
And what's the bare trust agreement used for?
The bare trust agreement, I use it for any properties that I realized shortly after buying that I should have bought it in my corp. Okay. And so you can only really do that if it's like been like 12 months or less.
So yeah, if you haven't yet filed a tax, you could just say, I'm holding this in trust for my corporation.
Actually, I bought this in my corp, but I used my personal name to qualify.
So what I mean, as far as the credit union goes that you work with, I think you work with Libro, is it?
Mostly, but I've been working with others now. Main Street and Meridian are good options.
And so if Libro doesn't play ball, is there a time where they don't?
Absolutely.
Because I would think they just want to keep winning your business.
So you'd think I have $9 million in mortgages with them. But I had my 24 unit building. I ran into stress because it was variable, and the mortgage payment went up $8,000 a month. So I went, okay, that sucks. And now the property loses money. Luckily, everything else makes money except for one. But like for the most part, it's just that building that's the problem. The mortgage went from 2.4 to
You did a variable on a 24 unit?
I know, it's stupid. That's a good
No,
lesson.
I'd never hear of people doing that.
Well, you probably shouldn't. So yeah, it was that was a great lesson learned. So
they didn't like it when they did the review on it.
Well, no, it wasn't even that. I was doing my own review and went, I don't like this. So I went and I made a pitch for converting it to interest only for a year. And I made a business case for it and said, look, I've done everything a competent investor could do with this building. I've turned 8 of the 24 units over so far. We've done exterior renovations to make it look nice, attract better tenants. We're in the process of continuing to turn more units over. And it still loses money. So I've done everything, and I bought it at a great price. I bought it for $152 a unit. I thought that was a pretty reasonable price. We replaced the boilers to get the gas, everything down, right? And it's still losing money. So can we convert this to interest only for now, so I can continue turning more units over? And in a year from now, it should be.
You asked them for that,
and they approved it.
Libro,
yeah.
But because they did that, they didn't want to give you anything else.
So then they're like, well, if we're going to do this, we're not going to loan more. So now it's like, cool, I'll just work with a different credit union.
Fix this. It's basically fix this, and then we'll talk about more mortgages.
And I'm sure that I could probably make a case for it, but they're just like, well, for now, because you show that, we're not going to do that and then also loan you more money. So but like it makes, I know that I'm better off at this point just going to different credit unions. So I've been doing that, and I'm actually getting better DCRs, and I'm realizing there's actually better opportunities.
So Main Street, I met with them at one point.
Main Street's an awesome option right now. Yeah.
That was Dan Warren introduced me to them.
They were not a good option when I looked into them in the past. But as of recently, they're more aggressive. Meridian is another option that's more available.
They're big,
and they're available in a lot more cities. So for a lot of listeners,
they're all over Ontario. Yeah. Well, I shouldn't say all over, but they're big.
Yeah. So, all of this gets me, gets interest rates down, gets, cash out refinances. And so that's what I've been doing this last while is just, for a year, I haven't bought anything. It's been stabilizing. I bought enough that I shouldn't buy more for a while and just stabilize. So probably 6 or 8 months from now, I'll be in an acquisition phase again. But
is this just like for entertainment value at this point? Do you still feel the need to grow, or is it like if you're not growing, you're shrinking?
No, I know that I could just hold, and I would feel like it's still growing in the long run. Having a large number of assets under management, even at 3% interest or 3% appreciation per year, is crazy, right?
Yeah.
I'm having a lot of fun with it, and I think it's just like I have that entrepreneur brain where I want to continue. I want things to be getting bigger and growing and improving, and so I have fun with it, and also like I have the business set up in such a way that like adding a new building is not really any more work for me. I mean, it's calling some
it's all in
lenders
the same neighborhoods, the same people who do your handiwork. Like at this point, is it just your manager that has the handyman?
No, I have my own GC, so I am managing my GC, but there's really
so when they say there's something that needs to be fixed, you send your guy over.
They contact each other.
You just say talk to them if they need anything?
My property manager, once every couple weeks or every month, they give my handyman a list of things. He goes around and fixes them all in a day or two and batches it all.
At what point did you delegate the management?
That was about a year ago. I was in Costa Rica. I had given them, actually, so when I bought the 51 units, immediately they took over management. So none of those tenants know I own the building. It's owned in my corp, so no one knows my name. And so I was really happy with how that was going. I was still self-managing the other half of my portfolio or whatever it was. And then I was in Costa Rica, and we were going surfing, and I was getting texts from tenants, and I was like, nah, that's enough of this. So I decided they're going to take over.
I think especially like in some of that, like the lower income, and there's nothing wrong with people who rent those type of places, but sometimes the issues that come up, you wouldn't necessarily want them having your number.
Oh, exactly. And I've had tenants like that where I it can become a safety issue at times. Like I've had drug dealers, and also I've had anything you could name. I've found bodies like in units, like when tenants that have passed away in units.
You found a dead body in you walked in on it.
Yep. Yeah. I actually was like almost expecting it when I opened the door, because I hadn't heard from the guy. I was self-managing at the time, and I hadn't heard from the guy in a while. He always paid his rent on time because it was like $400. And so he always made sure to pay. And I hadn't heard from him in a while. And some of the other tenants in the building are like, have you seen this guy around? I was like, no. And they're like, you should check in the unit. And I was like, oh no. So I kind of like slowly opened the door and looked in, and saw some feet and closed the door, and feet on the ground, and just closed.
Oh, like just laying on the ground?
Yeah. So I
you
just
didn't see
closed
the whole
door.
body?
No, I didn't want to.
Oh man.
So I just called the police immediately, and yeah.
Yikes.
I've seen like, I don't know. I basically
Needles
seen everything.
and-
Shoveling needles out of units. Like,
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like you can get into that kind of stuff. Like people who are doing some very hard drugs.
oh yeah, there's been people cooking on spoons on the stovetop, and also like,
Yeah.
the thing is like, these buildings now are great buildings. So they're in location.
But you had to churn that out of there, right?
We have people that make more than I ever made at their day jobs, like that live in some of these buildings now. Like,
So the neighborhood's really changing. And
so Old East is really good overall for finding good tenants, at least. COVID made everything worse, but you can still get great tenants in Old East Village, in Soho as well, and definitely in Woodfield. So I haven't found it to be an issue getting quality tenants in any of these neighborhoods. It's tougher during the transition time when these buildings still have half the building or still rougher tenants. But we tend to work on the roughest tenants first.
you approach them first about getting
Because
out.
they're causing the most problems. So we try to.
Will that still be you that does that has those conversations?
No, I don't have any of those
So
conversations.
now you'll let the management
My property
do it?
managers take care of it all. Yeah,
But I'm saying, like, if you're trying to negotiate cash for keys,
they do that. Yeah,
They're gonna do that.
Yep, I
You
trust
pay them
them
a
to do it.
fee
no, I don't actually. They're happy to get the units turned
because
over
they want to make more on it.
They get
anyway.
better tenants. They make more money.
Yeah, so they're interested in doing the same.
our interests are aligned, and so is my general contractor. So because he wants more work and he likes to do good work, so he knows I'm going to give him more. So he's worked for me for years now, and it's awesome because I don't have any partners, but I feel like I have partners.
Yeah, you have the team, right?
And we have our
that's part
incentives
of the
aligned. It's awesome.
So this guy, like, where did you start working with him? Like, just on your smaller stuff?
He was my junk removal guy originally.
And you just asked him if he can help you with some stuff?
And then one day I was, there was like the subfloor needed to be replaced in one of my units. And he was like, I could do that for you if you want. And I was like, okay, we'll give it a try. Cause like it's subfloor. You can't really.
How bad can you screw it up?
And then like 8 hours later, the whole unit was done. And it was like him and a couple guys that came and did it. And I had my other guy come take a look and he said, yeah, it was a quality job. And I was like, okay, what else can this guy do? And so I was slowly expanding that. And now he does everything except for like some, plumbing or electrical and like some of that kind of stuff. I still have an HVAC guy, an electrician.
Yeah, which you should.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense.
He does do the boarding, mudding, and taping and everything, which works out fine. I think that like I'd probably have, it makes sense more really to have a mudder, but it's nice to have the same guy doing the framing, the boarding, and the mudding, because no one complains about the jobs before them.
Yeah.
Like the boarder complaining about the framing's job, the mudder complaining about the
Is mud and tape okay?
It's fine.
It's fine.
Yeah, like you look like you might notice a
not the
couple of
best.
spots
Yeah.
after a unit.
It's not
the whole unit's
professional.
done. It's not like but these are older buildings, and you never no one would ever really notice. I would notice.
That's a real art.
Yeah. But these aren't brand new condos, or I think that like people really underestimate, or people know that they should be strategic about renovations. They know they shouldn't over improve, but I don't find people taking action on that properly. I think that it's just something everyone's like, oh yeah, of course. I know what BRRRRing is. I know what over improving is, and I shouldn't do it. People understand the concepts, but I don't think they're applying them right.
Yeah.
The projects people take on aren't good BRRRR projects a lot of the times. The renovations they're doing aren't as strategic as they should be. People understand these concepts at a high level, but they aren't applying them properly.
Well, it's easy to know the theory.
Yeah.
And like coming from a guy who went to business school, like I
Right.
felt entrepreneurially useless, even though I literally taught a case-based course on entrepreneurship. It's just like when it actually comes to you, it's so easy to look at others and evaluate, but when in your own fog,
I did computer science.
Difficult.
I remember college students being able to take computers apart and put them back together. And I was like, well, I could tell you all the theory behind that processor and whatever, but I couldn't take a computer. So I had to learn that stuff on my own, right? Like I would just, all right, let's buy an old computer. And
I just
take it
did
apart,
that as a kid. I just took them apart.
Oh yeah.
I built computers as a kid.
But it's just like the college versus university thing, right? Like, and I think that like people understand a lot of the theory, but not the application. I think it's the same with real estate. Like people understand, they've listened, they've done enough webinars.
So give me an example of how you don't over improve, because I think that you do have a knack for this very clearly, because you do enough to get them rented for a good price.
Right.
You have a good enough team that you can weed out the bad tenants.
I think that at a high level, you can have people where the finishes, like they do a good enough job where the finishes aren't impeccable, but it's in a neighborhood that it doesn't need to be impeccable.
Yeah.
And you can get the job done for, half the cost per hour kind of thing. Some of that.
What finish isn't good? You're talking like your baseboard trim isn't perfectly cut.
Yeah, things like that. Like I've had, unfortunately, like maybe sometimes tile is like a little out of, like nowadays I have a good tile guy actually, because I didn't want to deal with that. Maybe like, yeah, it's mostly like trim, maybe like some of the, like the mudding was a good example. Sure. I'll run into the occasional issue that I'll need to come make, like I've had laminate countertops where they don't rip it properly and it's kind of mangled at the end. And then I want them to actually fix it, and then you got to pay for them to fix it. So like there's some of the little bit, sometimes there's some back and forth, but I get renos done for, probably 60% of the cost of a lot of people. So
yeah, because you have one guy that just takes care of it.
One guy and a crew of like, sometimes
and
just some
he shows
grunts,
up
right?
for you. Like how
he
long?
works for me 7 days a week, like almost 7. Like
so he doesn't really have any other clients?
No, he doesn't. He works full time for me. Yeah, more than full time.
But as a subcontractor?
As a sub, yeah. I don't have any employees. I just have I have a video editor, but this is all just like
yeah. Seems like he might be a candidate to become your employee at one point.
Well, I don't know why I would. I don't know. I haven't found the benefit to it. I mean, he works for me full time. He's like, he wants to for years to come, where our incentives are aligned. So,
well, that's the way to do it, I think. And that's the way I did it, like when I was really putting out the student rental renos, is like full-time employees, and it wasn't perfect. Not every job was perfect. Yeah. But it meant more to me to get it done.
Yeah, quickly and
I did it for a fraction of what it would probably cost a lot of other people to do it. Yeah. So it worked.
And I like getting quotes. Like it makes it a whole lot easier mental bandwidth wise for me to be like, okay, you're going to board this unit for, this little unit for $1,000. You're going to mud it for $1,000. You're going to whatever. It's like, okay, the boarding's done. Here's your pay. Okay, the money.
So your guy still does that. So
yeah, we still do quotes.
It's not hourly.
Well, we switched it to quotes recently. It was hourly. The quotes are based on his expectation for the number of hours it'll take, and for the most part, we don't really have to make adjustments unless extenuating circumstances. But we do quotes, so that makes it a lot easier for me to keep track. He sends me photos. Here's the whole unit. It's been boarded. Cool. Yeah. And I just send a. Well, I actually had to move to TD Bank so that I could do bill payments. You can set them up as a personal payee.
Oh, really? Okay, so RBC has something similar.
Yeah,
but it's like maxed at like $3,000 or something.
This is like I haven't found it. There's no max to it. I don't believe.
It's just whatever you want.
Yeah. So I was e-transfer. It didn't really work out that great, and I'm sure you can do stuff through QuickBooks or whatever. But yeah, I had him literally get an account at TD so that I could pay him through personal payee as a pay bill option. Yeah. Well,
now what you can do, now that you have the corporate accounts, is you can do ACH direct deposit, which there is no limit. Like you set the limit.
Oh, I've never heard of that.
And then you just do like a fob. I have a little fob with it's like a 2-factor ID.
Oh, okay.
The way that concept was originally created with privacy. So it's just a fob that changes number every like 10 seconds.
Yeah.
And I can release $1 million today if I want.
Right. Yeah. Interesting. And you can pay a contractor with that, or
you just get their void check, put it in, you pay them. Doesn't matter what bank they're at.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah. So that's what I do with everybody. I'm like, send me your void check.
I'm gonna have to bother you for that.
I'm not going to the bank, not getting a bank draft. We're not doing wires. This will just drop the money in your account.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah.
I have heard people do. I know a lot of people some people will run a lot of money through like an Amex. There's ways to you have to pay like 3% fees, but they'll take the 3% hit, but they'll get like insane amounts of like travel points and stuff. And they'll run it through I think plastic.com is like one way to do some of this. Or I think you can pay utility bills with it. And there's some quirky, I don't do
because it's somehow worthwhile.
Well, you end up the thing is you can definitely write off fees, but you don't have to claim travel points. So you can have millions of travel points and completely above board, but cash back on credit cards, you technically need to claim.
You get taxed on it. Yeah. I've heard of people getting like significant audits over that.
Really? Yeah. So there's
a reason not to take the cashback card in your
But I mean, you only need so many travel points. I don't need millions and millions of travel points. So
I feel like you do. What, 5 different countries last year?
It was something something like that. It was too much. Like my fiance Angie loves to travel, so we were doing a lot of it, but I got burnt out with it by the end.
I wouldn't really like that much.
It's too much.
Yeah, for me, I do like having a stable base. That being said, I don't really want that to be in Ontario for the winter.
Right.
Much prefer to be just away.
When you're traveling that much, like you can't work out properly, you can't eat properly, you have no routine, it's harder to work.
Just wait till you have a kid.
Yeah, exactly.
Then you'll know what not being able to have a routine is.
Well, I think this is a big part of the reason for the travel blitz is kids, you know, coming up. So it's a lot of like, well, that'll be the plan in a year or two or something like so.
Yeah,
we're you know, knock off some locations that we wouldn't otherwise go to with kids, right?
Yeah, I mean, but you can like, so we traveled with my son at 10 weeks old. We went to Florida. We drove.
Yeah.
And he just slept most of the time. So
Perfect.
What would have been a 6-hour drive per day turned into 8.
Yep.
And 9 one day.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. He did have a meltdown the very last day.
Yeah.
But
it's a lot. Yeah. But yeah,
I mean,
manageable.
once he hit 3 months, we wouldn't have done it.
Yeah.
So if you guys are up for it, that would be the time. If you got a place to stay somewhere and just go and like, I don't know, it's way better to have a warm climate. You know, you can take the baby for walks and stuff. Like we didn't want to be inside in the winter.
No, and we're definitely considering Florida next winter for a month or two, something like that.
Yeah.
We were in enough warm locations this winter, you know, Australia and whatever.
Yeah.
But we want to just, I'd like to be able to like go somewhere where I can go to the gym and eat well and still like work. And
I strongly recommend it. We did Florida for 3.5 months in 2021, and it was like just the best. That was when everything was locked down at home, and we were just truly enjoying life. I would, since baby came along, it's a little harder.
Yeah.
But we were fortunate enough 6 weeks last year and then 4 weeks this year. So I mean,
awesome. Yeah.
Not nothing, not as much as we'd like, but it helps. I would say like for me, and I don't know what it is, like I just find the gray even now.
Oh, it's a nightmare.
It's depressing.
Yeah.
Like I find it depressing and I don't want to be around.
I wouldn't be surprised if like 25% of listeners are Andrew Huberman fans at this point, because like he's all over, but like he talks a lot about getting like sunlight in your eyes in the morning, and 16 hours after your first sunlight exposure is when you start to get tired. So it makes sense that first thing in the morning you want to get sunlight in your eyes.
Yeah.
And it helps you like sleep properly that evening. And so every morning I wake up and open the blinds and it's a gray sky.
Oh, I know. Man.
But I would love to see a blue sky and like go up by the pool and like get some sun in my eyes. And I just, after a beach day, everyone's wiped. Like it just makes sense to like have some of that.
Yeah, I mean, I love Ontario summer, but I just think that we have horrendous weather for a lot of the year.
We do.
And I'd like to just be here for like, I think like May 15th we came back, or I think it was like May 12th.
Yeah.
And it was actually like, it was the sweet spot. The temperatures just shifted up and it was like 18 degrees plus and sunny.
Even just literally 8 weeks away in the winter is probably, enough to make it all make it work, like 2 to 3 months just gone during the work.
I'd rather be even in Ontario for February and then be gone for March and April. Yeah. Because those seem to drag.
I'd almost want to be here for Christmas just for the nostalgia.
Oh, I enjoy the Christmas part. So that no problem getting up to Christmas.
Yeah.
Actually, even like, we've left in January a couple times. That's cool.
Yeah.
But I think, the reason I bring this talk up is like we get into investing and a lot of people who listen to this podcast eventually like they turn it into their income in some way, whether it's through flipping or whether it's through, passive income or whatever.
Or living off refinance funds. A lot of BRRRR investors are doing that.
There are some that are doing that. Yeah, for sure. And then you can design your lifestyle.
Yeah.
Or if you eventually get to the point where you have enough passive income, then it's on the table.
It makes sense to be intentional about that. Yeah.
Yeah.
I live in a triplex and I still drive a Hyundai Accent. So I've been like, I'm still living a fairly frugal life.
Crushing it.
But but
you'll be getting a minivan soon enough.
Well, I think that I would never have expected myself to say this, but I like the idea of the next house we buy to not put a mortgage on it, or at least like within a year or two, just have the thing paid off, have an Airbnb suite in the basement that covers the cost of utilities, property tax, insurance, and just know that we never need to worry about making a mortgage payment on the house we live in, and or any of the utilities and stuff. That's all covered. And then our income is our income, and it's for travel, food, whatever. Kids.
Do you have? Do you personally guarantee your mortgages on all these?
I believe it all is. I know that originally was. I don't remember signing things like that this last while, but it's probably
in the legal package.
Yeah,
I'm just thinking like the next step of layer of protection in case shit hit the fan would be to have your home in a trust.
Oh, interesting.
And then with beneficiaries that are not just you.
Yeah, I don't know.
And this isn't legal or accounting advice, but I did speak with George Duby about this at one point, and he said, say somebody comes for you one day or whatever, it's like, oh, well, sorry, creditor, this isn't mine.
Yeah,
this belongs to a trust, and there are multiple beneficiaries.
I think that's a good example of things where people like we talked about mental bandwidth, but just also like the safety of your life and knowing like like there's every life has some asterisks associated with it when it comes to like, if this happens, then everything falls apart. And I try to avoid as many of those as I can, right? So now, like, you know, I want to make sure that my taxes are all done right. I don't want to, if I get audited, I don't want that to be a stressful situation. I want it to be that's cool, because every single transaction in my bank account is associated with a receipt. Yeah. And there's nothing to look like in an audit. It's all the answers there, you know?
And I think like, a big way, because with audits, like personal ownership is a huge target. Yeah. Not owning it in your personal name is probably a big asset to you. And I've made the switch, nothing with the personal name.
Right. Yeah. Like, no more. Yeah.
Because I went through a disgusting audit on the personal. Yeah. And just
I remember we talked about that years ago.
Stress
I didn't remember talking about it.
Yeah. I never really talked about it on here, but it's just it was gross. So and you know what I will say is, like, for, you know, people, like the simplest in the first place, this is what all the accountants will tell me that I have this conversation, is they look at your mileage log. Yeah. That's the starting point, because if you don't do a good job with that, it's like, okay, tip of the iceberg. Now let's ask for a few more.
I've never claimed mileage, because I was always like, that's a red flag. I just don't feel like it.
Probably,
even though I drove to Burlington today for this,
you probably would have already been audited, right? Like, and I used to do a lot more with the mileage, especially on the reimbursements from my company, and I haven't.
Wow.
Like, I should. Like, it's actually just stupid to not do it. But
and I might do it at least in my like my coaching company business, right?
Because then it's like
reimburse
yourself.
They can audit that one. It's all associated with
exactly.
It's
but you
easy.
should reimburse yourself. Like if you're driving like 1,000 kilometers, like there's actually a corporate reimbursement rate. Like it's so much easier than tracking every kilometer you go everywhere. It's like, this isn't accounting advice.
How does that work?
This is just what my accountant recommended to me. So take it with a grain of salt. But basically said that with allowable reimbursement, you just track the kilometers you do, and then you use the government allowed, whatever their rate is, like 55 cents or 60 cents, to reimburse yourself.
Oh, I need to do that.
Yeah. So that's, and you know what? The reason I don't is, like, I barely do any driving.
I know, me either.
I don't really drive to site. I don't. But the Florida trips, you know, like, that's one of those ones I could do. I just, I'll have to get some advice on how to do that. Because,
well, I mean, there's I'm sure there's enough justification for these things. Sometimes I'll drive to a student's property to show them or whatever. Or we'll drive to a podcast
for sure.
Like this, or
like today, like
whatever.
That's a write-off. I would assume.
I have some coin laundry rolls I'll probably use for gas, but I'm better off. Like, it's funny because even that, like, you know, you got to make sure you're claiming your laundry income, but like, because like that would be riskier than it would to just instead do it legitimately and write it off. Like, pay with a credit card, write it off, write off the mileage, you know, like.
Like how does that work? Let's just do a hypothetical. Like you're like, you've spoken with your accountant and he said it would be weird if there wasn't any laundry income.
You're supposed to claim your laundry income. Yeah.
Of course.
So So
I'm saying,
you don't want to have $0 on your
that would be odd,
income.
right? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
We'll leave it at that.
Yeah. I mean, like some people put like pay range so that like tenants can actually pay by credit card, and then it's all on paper. Like, I tend to do a lot of coins. So like, you know, make sure you're claiming your coins. Yeah.
Yeah, make sure.
Yeah, very important. I mean, it's really not that much anyway, to be honest.
No, just a little chump change, right?
Yeah. But it's very common for people to be like, that's my gas and groceries money or whatever, right? Like, yeah.
Very interesting, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I hear the stories, like, having been in the mortgage world and like car washes. You know,
yeah.
I had a guy tell me, he's like, oh, don't worry, Andrew. Like, I will pay off this mortgage within the next year and a half, like the mortgage you took on the property.
Wow.
He's like, that's how much cash we do.
Wow. That's insane.
Yeah.
It's funny because I think of like Breaking Bad when I think of the car wash, but that's a whole different thing. That's them trying to
legalize
laundering.
money.
Yeah. I went and saw that actual car wash. We were in one of our travels. We saw the actual Breaking Bad car wash. Yeah.
Oh, interesting.
And Walter White's house. Yeah. Yeah,
very cool.
There's a fence around it because because like people are always coming and taking pictures. So the people that own this house are so pissed off.
I can imagine the people. I don't know why this occurs to me, but the ones from the Home Alone house. Like, I imagine they get that all the time.
I'm sure.
I think they do have a fence. But
yeah, you'd need one. Yeah, well,
too iconic.
In Breaking Bad, there's a scene where he throws he gets pissed off and throws a pizza on, and it lands on the roof. Yeah. So they were having a lot of people like reenact that scene. So they were getting pizzas thrown on the roof all the time.
Yeah.
But they were not happy. They were like sitting down on their porch, like looking so upset. We're like across the street, like, hey, it's Walter White's house. We don't look happy.
Oh, so you didn't even know?
Oh, no, we knew.
Yeah.
We were like, let's go see it. Oh, those people don't look happy. Like, Why did they buy that house? I wonder if they knew.
Yeah. I bet not. Yeah.
I wonder if they just bought it and like, what's going on? Why is everyone here? Like,
I remember walking by the Full House houses in San Francisco. Nothing like, oh, there's that. Okay.
Yeah. There's something fun about real estate in general. Like we all like, how fun is it to just go into houses, right? Like, just like,
I've always enjoyed that. Those are like the funnest days.
That's one of the best parts about real estate.
Days.
Just going
into houses.
We do open housing sometimes, us and our friends. We'll just we'll just do a day of open housing.
That's great.
Yeah. Just go around,
and it's good market research too.
Yeah.
It's
it can end up being useful, but it's just
you never
fun.
know. You're like, oh, I just saw 3 houses. Like, oh, that one was like clearly underpriced. We should make an offer on that one. Like even just to like assign it or whatever. Like, and what things like you notice, like, oh, that listing didn't have good photos. Like I like noticing these things.
Yeah.
Like, it makes a difference. Like when somebody lists badly, they attract less eyes. There's a good chance that there might be a deal there.
Oh, yeah. Oh, 100%. Yeah. So many of my buildings that I bought had no photos or terrible photos.
Yeah.
And it's like $200 or $300 to hire a great photographer to come take your pictures and make a video.
Yeah.
Like, it's not that much. It's insane that people...
Yeah, I'm just doing that in Florida right now.
Yeah.
Getting all that done for the 2 I have listed.
Oh, yeah. Makes
I'm going to do virtual staging too.
Right.
But what I want to do...
Or do you do Matterport for
we've
for
got
too?
Matterport, but the photos aren't great.
Right.
Yeah, so I'm getting the whole shebang.
Right. But the virtual staging, that's cool. So they're photoshopping a couch
They're photoshopping it in.
That's cool.
But I think real staging at this point for my business down there, I just didn't want to have to store it in between.
Right.
But I think I'd just buy all the furniture for real staging.
There's going to be AI. Like, I'm sure you could Google virtual staging AI at this point. It'd probably be like...
Oh, for sure. It's just when people show up, like it helps that much more to have them come in, right? Because the staging's not there anymore.
For sure.
But it is much cheaper.
Yeah.
So, Kellan, what's the grand plan? Like, I know you're obviously getting the traveling out of your system because you're thinking maybe growing the family, you're getting married soon.
Yeah.
Goal with the business, like what are you looking to do?
I like the idea of just buying something like an apartment building a year kind of thing. Just
for enjoyment.
I mean, I've always just been BRRRRing. I've just continued to scale without partners, and I still haven't found the need for it. So just buy an apartment building a year, something like that. Like it's not like a specific number or anything like that.
You just want to keep growing.
Keep the mental bandwidth on the business low. Keep doing the coaching and stuff because I'm having fun with it as like an active source, and something I can kind of like, take on more or less students depending on how busy I feel like being. So that keeps me doing some active stuff. But that's sort of that. I mean, I don't like, I've always just maintained a lot of focus, right? Like I've been doing the same thing since 2016 and I plan to just keep doing that. It's working.
That's great that you just keep your head down, do the same thing,
rock
and roll.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, and you're changing too. You're developing now, like natural progression.
Maybe for sure. Yeah. If things like that pop up, I'll take advantage of them. But still
just keep looking. This is why I say, look for properties with extra land.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. This was a wake up call when I saw that. When I realized I could build a 12-plex on land without having to buy anything else, I was like, okay, I'll keep an eye out for that now.
I like this.
Yeah.
Cool. So where do people reach you?
Yeah, Kellan James on Instagram, kellanjames.ca. That's where I have like my mentorship program and stuff as well. So people can do like one-on-one coaching with me. And then I have like masterminds that I'll put on probably a couple times a year as well with like group coaching and all online for that. So
do you like meetups or actual physical masterminds?
This is just online as of now.
Yeah.
We used to do a lot of in-person meetups. I know people miss it. I think if there's the right demand for it, I'd probably introduce it. But like the mentorship stuff, I just do 6 months. People can, we have a call every 2 weeks. I look at like what's the best use of their time at that moment. Yeah. I mean, I basically only work with people who are building a long-term buy and hold portfolio.
Yeah.
So I'm not an expert at Airbnbs and flipping and that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
I can do those, but it's it's so funny. I never thought this would be a niche. But it's a niche to just build a long-term buy and hold real estate portfolio.
I wouldn't even think it's that much of a niche. It's pretty big.
But it's like
big segment.
Like when you go on social media,
everybody's talking about
people aren't talking about it. They're talking about Airbnbs and flips and wholesales and wholetails.
Yeah, because those are like more attractive. In the short run. Yeah. Instant gratification.
It's become a niche to just buy investment properties without partners and just continue to scale that portfolio. Yeah. And yet, I think that's one of the best things people can do. I really believe that. I mean, it's what I'm doing. But it's become a niche.
If you're gonna take on partners, like it needs to make sense. It's got to be for a deal that makes sense to have a partner on. Whether it be an active business, I think that a lot of times it makes sense for partners, strategic partners.
Oh yeah.
For just qualifications, some people will do that early on, but I don't think that they necessarily need to.
Yeah, no, there's like at the end of the day, pick your strategy and stick with it and get great at it. And there's lots of people who do amazing jobs building large portfolios with JV partners, but almost every single one of those that I've seen doing that in Ontario has since sold most of those portfolios.
Yeah, and then they end up just doing it on their own.
And they do it on their own.
Yeah, they don't end up wanting to stay in them for the long run. Oh yeah, I didn't really want to keep holding stuff with a partner. And I get that logic. Yeah, so that's why, I think partnership makes sense for, like I said, the active businesses, certain strategic reasons, and then of course the short-term stuff. I think it can make a lot of sense. But,
yeah. I think there's 1,000 ways to make money, but try to pick one, maybe two, and just stick with it and get really good at it.
For sure.
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, Kellan, any words of wisdom before we close out?
No, I mean, just stick with forcing appreciation on buildings. If you're a new investor, try to make sure the projects are relatively predictable so that you're not getting into something that you're going to be stuck with for a long time.
Yeah.
Budget for cash for keys so that if tenants don't move out, you have the ability to pay them.
Yeah.
And just continue to scale your portfolio. Don't rush into things. Don't think you have to scale insanely fast. Just take on a building or two a year, and
slow and steady will do it.
If you're doing it without partners, you have to do half as many deals, so you don't have to get as many deals. You can just do one a year instead of two a year, or 2 a year instead of 4 a year, and get the exact same result for half the work. So
well said. Cool. All right, Kellan, thanks for doing this.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
There are a lot of people out there talking about the infinite banking strategy and whether or not it makes sense for them. To find out what it's all about and if it's a fit for you, visit controlandcompound.com/Andrew Hines, where my audience can gain exclusive access to books, podcasts, and webinars tailor-made for real estate investors.